Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to have a look at how the ES unfolded yesterday. But before I do that, I'd like to have a quick roundup of the larger degree picture on the markets, particularly in the wake of the British people deciding to leave the European Union referendum, which happened last Thursday/Friday. So I just want to see how MTPredictor coped with that on the US market. So let's go to the daily chart. Now let's scroll the chart back and have a look at where we were a few days leading up into the referendum. What do we use for our support or resistance areas in MTPredictor? Well, these are decision points levels. These are great because they're on the chart in advance. So here we are back on the 21st, for example, and we have a pivot high here. So we right mouse click on the pivot high, do decision point, and that gave us a level out there in advance. Remember, this is in advance before the market even gets there as a potential area for resistance. Let's now go forward. There's the next day, and then this is the day of Friday the 24th when the referendum was announced. And look what the market did. It went straight up and made a high, but look where it made the high, right at our decision point level that we'd had on our chart in advance. What happened next? Well, the market corrected back. It corrected back fairly sharply, and if we actually take off trading mode, you can see the market's made a low in the last couple of days and reversed back up again. But let's have a look at where this low came in. Remember, just as we did before, as we here, the market was going up, we went to the previous high, placed our decision point resistance on. Let's go back to the previous low. You can see there's a pretty important previous low back here on the 19th. Right mouse click, do decision point. Remember, that would have been on the chart in advance. But look what the ES has done. It's gone from our decision point resistance down into decision point support, and it's now starting to rally off that level. So even though most of the news people are running around not sure what's happening and causing chaos and basically there's loads of uncertainty out of there, as far as we're concerned with MTPredictor, all that's happened is the ES went up into decision point resistance. It then came down into decision point support. So these levels were there, predicted in advance by MTPredictor. So what's happening now? Well, the market appears to be rallying off this level, so we'll see if this rally can unfold at all, or whether we just get an ABC correction before the market turns over again. So we'll have to watch this over the coming days in advance. So anyway, we've got support down here on our daily level. If we now go down to our shorter term chart for yesterday, we'll have a look at this in our MTPredictor customers only training webinar yesterday, and I was looking at this and saying, well, we had a big gap up. What very often happens after a big gap up like this is the market tends to chop sideways, and that's what it was doing there. So what was the large degree trend? Well, it's quite difficult on days like this, because if we go out to the 15-minute chart, there weren't any really obvious support or resistance levels. Here was our last low, basically on the 27th. The market had gapped up through the DP here, and the next DP resistance was way back here, right up at this level. So we were sort of in no man's land. Our large degree trend was probably up, but of course it's very difficult looking at this when the market had already moved way beyond the ATR for the day. So what's the ATR? Well, the ATR is, if we get the ATR for the last couple of days on the ES, it's the average range over the last 14 days. So I'm just displaying the ATR up for yesterday, and you can see at 2013, in and around there, that was the average move for the last 14 days. But of course, with the Britex, the ranges have actually expanded. So when you look at this, the market had already made a rally equivalent to the average move over the last 14 days. So I was looking at this and thinking, well, we may not get any more rallies during the rest of the day. But obviously the market had other ideas and did actually rally up quite nicely. So there was a bit of a conflict here. Our decision points were suggesting that the market could go up because we'd gone past decision point resistance and we hadn't got anywhere near our next decision point resistance, but our ATR for the day was suggesting that the move may well be over, so any moves higher were less likely. But then, of course, with the Brit exit, volatility would be possibly increased. So let's have a look what the automatic setups did for yesterday. Well, the STF here, and this is probably what you should come back onto, was suggesting blue, therefore largely trend up, therefore you should be looking for long trades. So you'd probably want to be avoiding that TS3 sell, but we had two setups earlier, and I want to look at these because these are important. Why? Because this one would have been a losing trade, then this one here would have been a losing trade. Losses are very important because most gurus tend to avoid these and not look at these when they're doing training videos, but losses can, will and do happen in real live trading. I want to say that again. Losses can, will and do happen. It's a fact of trading life. But what we do is we use correct position sizing, where we vary the number of lots, contracts or shares. In this case there would have been 2 contracts for a 2% risk on a sample $20,000 account, and both of them would have been losing trades. So you'd have lost what we call 2R, one risk unit on each time. So you'd have been 2R down. You then have another TS3 buy set up here. This time it went to our first target, but can you see the difference? At the first target here the profit was 5.6R. In other words, the -1 was wiped out and then put back in profit very nicely by being 5.6R. This is what position sizing does. It allows you to have profits that when they come through are much larger than the losses. Was there any reason to swap to that TS4 sell? Well, it's very difficult to justify that because the STF indicator was blue. As I've already discussed, our DP levels had suggested that the market would gone through those, therefore the large degree trend was up. The only thing against that was our daily ATR, and that probably wouldn't have been reason enough by itself to want to look to short the market. So there we had a good example of how to keep your losses small and profits large by having 2 losing trades, which were -1, -2R. Then you had a lovely TS3 buy setup that actually got you long off the low of the day, or the bar of the low of the day. That setup came in on the very bar of the low of the day. The market then rallied up and taking profit pretty much near the high of the day as well for a nice 5.6R. So overall, even though the market rallied, and I wasn't particularly anticipating it was going to rally, it just shows you sometimes when you have opinions on the markets, the opinions are not necessarily what the market does. The market will do what it wants to do, and just by trading the setups you can keep your trades in the market. Looking at that in the backdrop of our daily analysis we did earlier, it's probably no surprise that the market was rallying because we came off the decision point low. So overall this has been a good period for MTPredictor. In particular, with all the confusion going on with the Brit exit confusion in the market, but it wasn't confusion for MTPredictor. As you can see, we went right up to our DP resistance area to tag that high. It then came down right into our DP support, and now we're rallying off that. And within that context, now a couple of days after the announcement and things have settled down a bit, we've now been getting some nice trade setups on the shorter term charts where we were having losing trades. It's important to understand that losses can, will and do happen, but these losses were kept small at just -1R. And then our next trade down at the bottom here, so we had 2 losing trades, 1 profitable trade. That profit was much larger than the losses, where we had -1R, -2R, and then plus 5.6R to make money overall. Again, STF was blue and the DPs were suggesting a rally. Therefore, even though I wasn't anticipating it myself, the market did indeed rally, and that's what gave us a good day yesterday. The NQ had a good day as well. Again, looking for just on the long side. That would have been a losing trade there to start with. It then had a TS4 buy setup that came into the first target there for plus 2.9R. The YM was very quiet with no buy setups at all. So the main action was on the NQ, which had a nice setup there, and the ES, in particular that lovely trade off the very bar of the low of the day, up into the high there for plus 5.6R. So a good day for MTPredictor overall yesterday.